A female police officer crashes her car on a dark, rainy highway. She is bleeding badly and thinks she will die. A stranger stops to help. He knows emergency medical skills. He saves her life. But what happens next will shock the entire police department and change the whole community forever. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Officer Jennifer Carter was driving her patrol car on Highway 47 when everything went wrong. It was a cold November night, and the rain was falling so hard that she could barely see the road ahead. She had been a police officer for 8 years, and she knew this highway very well. Tonight, she was responding to a report of suspicious activity near the old warehouse district. As she drove around a sharp curve, her headlights caught something in the road. It was a wooden crate, probably fallen from a truck. Jennifer tried to brake, but the rain made the road too slippery. Her car skidded to the left, then to the right. She lost control completely. The patrol car crashed into the metal guardrail with a terrible sound of breaking metal and breaking glass. The car flipped once, then twice, and finally came to rest on its side in the ditch. Jennifer's head hit the window hard. Everything went black for a moment. When Jennifer opened her eyes again, she could taste blood in her mouth. Her left arm hurt badly. She looked down and saw a deep cut across her stomach. Blood was soaking through her uniform. She tried to move, but the pain was too much. The car was smoking. She could smell gasoline. Jennifer knew she was in serious trouble. She had lost a lot of blood already. Her breathing was getting weaker. She tried to reach for her radio, but her arm would not move. She was alone on an empty highway, miles from any town. No one knew where she was. No one was coming to help her. She closed her eyes and thought about her daughter, Emma. Emma was only 5 years old. Emma loved to draw pictures and show them to her mother. Emma would wake up one day and her mother would not be there. Jennifer felt tears running down her face. Just when Jennifer thought this was the end, she heard a sound. An engine. Headlights appeared through the rain. A pickup truck was coming down the highway. The truck slowed down as it got closer to the crashed patrol car. A man got out of the truck. He was tall, maybe 40 or 50 years old, with dark hair and a serious face. He looked at the crashed patrol car and immediately knew that someone was inside and badly hurt. He ran toward the car. "Hello. Can you hear me?" the man called out. "Help me," Jennifer whispered. Her voice was very weak. "I am hurt." The man reached the car and looked inside. He saw Jennifer lying there, bleeding heavily. He did not panic. Instead, he became very calm and focused. He pulled at the car door, but it was stuck. He tried again, using all his strength. The door would not open. "I am going to get you out," the man said. His voice was steady and sure. "My name is David." "What is your name?" "Jennifer," she said softly. "I am a police officer. I am bleeding badly. I think I am going to die." "No, you are not going to die," David said firmly. "Not tonight. Not on my watch." David ran back to his truck and opened the back door. He pulled out an old green bag. Inside this bag were medical supplies. Bandages. Medicine. Tools that looked like they were from a hospital. David grabbed what he needed and came back to Jennifer's car. David took out a knife. It was a big, sharp knife. He used it to cut Jennifer's seatbelt. Then he carefully pulled her out of the car. He tried to be gentle, but he had to be fast. The car was still smoking. Gasoline was dripping from the tank. At any moment, the car could catch fire. David laid Jennifer on the wet ground, away from the car. He looked at her wound carefully. The cut was deep, maybe 6 inches long. Blood was flowing out quickly. If he did not stop the bleeding soon, Jennifer would not survive. This will hurt, David told her. I am sorry. But I have to do this. He took out special gauze that was made to stop bleeding very fast. He pressed it hard into Jennifer's wound. Jennifer screamed. The pain was incredible. But David did not stop. He pressed harder and harder. Stay with me, Jennifer, David said. Look at me. Do not close your eyes. Tell me about your daughter. You have a daughter, yes. Jennifer opened her eyes wide. How did you know that? I can see it, David said. I can see it in your eyes. Mothers have a special look. Tell me about her. Her name is Emma, Jennifer said through the pain. She is 5. She wants to be a princess. Then you have to stay alive, David said. Because someone needs to help her be a princess. Agree? Yes, Jennifer whispered. Yes, I will stay alive. David worked quickly. He wrapped Jennifer's wound with a special bandage that would keep pressure on it. He made sure it was not too tight and not too loose. Then he took out a blanket and covered her with it. Just then, the patrol car in the ditch made a strange sound. Then, suddenly, it caught fire. Flames shot up into the night sky. The heat was very strong, even from where Jennifer and David were standing. We need to move, David said. He picked Jennifer up gently and carried her to his truck. He laid her carefully in the back seat. Then he got in the front and drove toward town. 20 minutes later, David's truck pulled up to the emergency room of Central Hospital. He ran inside, shouting for help. I have an injured police officer, he yelled. She needs help now. Doctors and nurses came running. They took Jennifer from the truck and put her on a stretcher. They rolled her inside the hospital very fast. David followed them. A doctor named Dr. Patel looked at Jennifer's wound. She looked at the bandage that David had put on her. She looked at the way the wound was cleaned and treated. She looked very surprised. Who did this? Dr. Patel asked, looking at David. I did, David said simply. Are you a doctor? Dr. Patel asked. No, David said. A nurse? No. Then how do you know how to do this? Dr. Patel asked, her voice filled with surprise. This is professional medical work. This is excellent medical work. This bandage, this technique, this knowledge, where did you learn this? I used to be a soldier, David said quietly. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. She understood now. She called in her surgical team. They took Jennifer to the operating room. 2 hours later, Jennifer came out of surgery. She was alive. The doctor said that David's quick thinking and medical knowledge had saved her life. If he had not stopped and helped her, Dr. Patel told the police captain, Officer Carter would be dead now. Absolutely dead. This man is a hero. When Captain James Harrison heard about what happened, he came to the hospital immediately. He was the chief of the police department, and Jennifer worked for him. He was very worried about her. But when he heard that a stranger had saved her life, he wanted to meet this man. David was still in the waiting room when the captain arrived. Are you the man who saved Officer Carter? Captain Harrison asked. I just stopped to help, David said. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, the captain said. They would not have. Most people would have called 911 and waited. But you had medical training. You knew exactly what to do. You saved her life. The captain asked David many questions. Where was he from? What was his name? Where did he work? David answered all the questions politely, but he seemed to want to leave. Will you come to the police station? The captain asked. I want to give you an award. You are a hero. David shook his head. I do not want an award. I just want to know that Officer Carter will be okay. That is all. But the captain was not a man who accepted no easily. He told David that the police department wanted to honor him. He said that other officers needed to know what David had done. He said that David's action was an example of courage. Finally, David agreed to come to the station. He did not want to go, but he also did not want to be rude. 2 days later, David stood in front of the entire police department. There were 50 officers standing and sitting in the big meeting room. They all looked at David with respect and wonder. Captain Harrison stood beside him. This man, Captain Harrison said, pointing to David, risked his own life to save Officer Jennifer Carter. He stopped on a dark highway in the rain. He could have kept driving. He could have simply called 911. But he stopped. He used his medical knowledge, and he saved her life. The officers began to clap. The sound was loud and strong. David felt uncomfortable. He was not used to attention. He was not used to being called a hero. Officer Carter wanted to be here, the captain continued, but she is still recovering. However, she asked me to give you this. The captain handed David a folded piece of paper. Inside the paper, in Jennifer's handwriting, were these words. Dear David, you saved my life. You saved Emma's mother. You gave my daughter her mother back. I do not know how to thank you. The whole police department is grateful. We all know what you did. We will never forget. Jennifer Carter. When David read these words, something changed in his face. The sadness in his eyes became less. He looked like he understood something important. He looked like he understood that his life had purpose. That his skills, which had come from his military training, could be used to help people in this new world. After the gathering, the captain asked David to sit with him in his office. The captain had David's background checked. He discovered something surprising. David's real name was David Martinez. He had been a Special Forces combat medic for the United States Army. He had served in 3 different countries. He had received medals for bravery. He had left the military 5 years ago. The captain also discovered something sad. 5 years ago, David's wife had been killed in an accident. She was a police officer too. She had been killed during her work, trying to help people. Her name was Sarah. When the captain told David that he knew these things, David became very quiet. Jennifer Carter, the captain said slowly, she looks a little like your wife, does she not? Jennifer is brave. Jennifer helps people. Jennifer puts on the uniform and goes into danger every day, just like your wife did. David did not answer for a long time. Finally, he said, yes. She is like my wife. When I saw her in that car, bleeding and hurt, I saw my wife. I saw Sarah. And I realized that I could not let another person lose their mother or wife or sister. I could not let another family lose someone they love. The captain put his hand on David's shoulder. That is why you became a hero, David. Not because you have special training. But because you care. Because you love people. After this day, something changed in David. He stopped driving a delivery truck. Instead, he started working with the police department. Not as a police officer, but as a teacher. He taught other officers emergency medical skills. He showed them how to save lives in dangerous situations. David also started teaching regular people in the community. He taught classes at the library and at community centers. He taught nurses and firefighters and teachers how to give first aid. He taught people how to stop bleeding, how to do CPR, how to help someone who was choking. And Jennifer Carter, when she was strong enough, she worked with David. She was his first student. She learned everything he could teach her. And when she was completely healthy, she went back to work. But now, she was different. She was stronger. She was more confident. She knew that she could survive dangerous situations because David had shown her how. What shocked the entire police department most was not just David's heroic act that night on the highway. What shocked them was what happened after that. 6 months after David started teaching, the police department began to change. Officers were better trained in medical skills. When accidents happened, officers knew exactly what to do. They saved lives. They prevented small injuries from becoming big injuries. But more than that, the police department began to change on the inside. Officers began to understand something important. They began to understand that courage is not just about fighting bad people. Courage is also about helping. Courage is about stopping on a dark road and helping a stranger. Courage is about caring for people and giving them hope. David's presence changed the police department's culture. Officers began to be kinder to each other. They began to support each other more. They began to understand that they were not just fighters. They were healers too. They were protectors and helpers. And Jennifer Carter became David's best friend. She had been dying on that highway, and he had saved her. Now, they worked together to help others. Jennifer often said that David had given her a second life. And David said that Jennifer had given his life purpose again. One day, Jennifer brought her daughter Emma to one of David's classes. Emma was 6 years old now. She sat in the back of the room and watched her mother learn from David. After the class was over, Emma went to David and gave him a drawing. It was a picture of a princess, a truck, and a police officer. At the bottom, in big letters, Emma had written, "Thank you for saving my mom." David looked at the picture for a long time. Then he looked at Emma. Then he looked at Jennifer. He smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it was a real smile. A smile that came from deep inside his heart. "Emma," David said, "your mother is a real princess. She is brave and kind and strong. You should be very proud of her." "I am," Emma said. "And I am proud of you too. You helped my mom when she was hurt. That is what heroes do." As the months went by, David became more and more involved in helping people. He did not just teach in the police department anymore. He started a program called Life Savers Training. This program taught people in the community how to give first aid and CPR. But here is what shocked everyone the most. David did not just teach the skills. He also taught people how to care. He taught people how to see someone who is hurt and not just call for help, but to stop and help them personally. He taught people how to be brave. Within 1 year, David had trained over 300 people in his community. And these 300 people had saved 12 lives. 12 people who would have died were now alive because someone in David's class had known what to do. The police captain told the mayor about what David was doing. The mayor gave David an official award. But David said he did not want an award. He said that the award was Jennifer's and all the other officers who worked hard every day to keep people safe. The real shock to the police department and to the entire community was this: a stranger on a dark highway in the rain had stopped to help. A man who had experienced great sadness in his life had turned that sadness into service. A soldier who had left the military had found a new way to serve his community. And most shocking of all, one woman's accident had changed hundreds of lives. One woman bleeding on the side of the road had become the reason that a whole community learned to care for each other better. When Jennifer was fully recovered, she and David were invited to give a speech at a big community event. Jennifer spoke first. She talked about the night she crashed. She talked about how scared she was. She talked about thinking she was going to die. And then she talked about David stopping and helping her. That night, Jennifer said, "I learned that heroes are real. Heroes are people who stop. People who care. People who use what they know to help others." David was a hero that night. But now, I understand that we can all be heroes. We can all stop and help. We can all save lives. Then David spoke. He talked about his past. He talked about his wife. He talked about how sad he was for 5 years. He talked about how Jennifer's accident had helped him understand that his pain could become his purpose. Your pain, David told the crowd, does not have to destroy you. It can change you. It can help you. It can help you help others. When Officer Carter was bleeding in that car, I stopped being a man who was sad about his wife. I became a man who could save another man's wife. I became a man with purpose again. When David finished speaking, there was complete silence in the room. Then everyone stood up and clapped. People cried. Police officers cried. People in the community cried. After that day, David continued his work. He trained more people. More lives were saved. The police department continued to improve. Jennifer continued to work as a police officer, and she was a better officer because of what happened to her. But the most important thing that happened was this: the community changed. People began to care for each other more. People began to help each other more. People began to understand that we are all connected, and that when one person helps another person, the whole community becomes stronger. And every year on the anniversary of the night Jennifer crashed, the police department holds a ceremony. They give an award to someone in the community who has helped another person. They call it the David Martinez Compassion Award. And David stands there, with Jennifer beside him, and he watches people receive an award for doing what he did that night, stopping, caring, and helping someone else. Because that is what it means to be a hero. Not to have special powers. Not to be perfect. But to stop. To care. To help. And to understand that every single person can make a difference in someone else's life. Jennifer Carter's life was saved that night on the highway. But the real shock to the police department was that one act of kindness had transformed an entire community. One man's courage had given purpose to hundreds of people. And one woman's accident had shown everyone that heroes are real, and they are standing right beside us, waiting for the moment when they can help. 1 year after the accident, something remarkable happened. A documentary film crew came to the city to make a movie about David's story. They wanted to show the world what one person's act of kindness could do. They filmed David teaching, they filmed Jennifer working, they filmed the community members who had been trained and who had saved lives. But during the filming, the crew made an unexpected discovery. They found the old pickup truck that David had been driving on the night he saved Jennifer. The truck was parked in front of David's training center. On the back seat, the filmmakers found something that had been hidden for a long time. It was a military photograph. In the photograph, there were 5 soldiers standing together. One of them was David, much younger, in his military uniform. And standing next to him was a woman in a police uniform. The woman had a big smile. Her name was Sarah Martinez. David's wife. When David saw this photograph in the film, he cried. It was the first time anyone had seen David cry. Jennifer held his hand. The entire film crew became silent. They understood that this photograph meant something very important to David. "This is my wife," David said quietly. "This photograph is from 10 years ago. We were both young. We were both full of hope. We both wanted to help people. And we did help people. But then, she was taken from me." The documentary team asked David if he wanted to talk about his wife. David hesitated. But then he said yes. For the first time in 5 years, David talked about Sarah. He talked about how she had been a police officer. He talked about how she had died trying to help someone during a traffic stop. He talked about how angry he had been. How sad he had been. How lost he had been. For 5 years, David said, I was like a ghost. I was alive, but I was not living. I was driving a truck, but I was not going anywhere. I was existing, but I was not helping. I was alone. Then he looked at Jennifer. And then Jennifer crashed her car. And when I saw her lying there, bleeding, I saw my wife. I saw Sarah. And I realized something very important. I realized that my wife would not want me to be sad. She would want me to help people. She would want me to use what I learned in the military to save lives. She would want me to turn my pain into purpose. When this documentary was released, it became very famous. People all over the country watched it. People cried. People were inspired. David's story spread to other cities and other communities. Other people started their own lifesavers training programs. Other communities began to change, just like David's community had changed. 3 months after the documentary was released, David received a call from the White House. The President of the United States wanted to give David a medal for his service to his community. But David said he did not want to go to Washington. He said that he was too busy teaching. He said that his place was with his students and with Jennifer. But the president would not accept no as an answer. So David traveled to Washington, and he met the president. The president told David that his story had inspired millions of people. The president told David that because of what he had done, other communities across America had started training programs to teach people how to save lives. You have changed this nation, the president told David. You have shown people that one person can make a difference. You have shown people that pain can become purpose. You have shown people that heroes are real. The president gave David a National Medal of Heroism. It was one of the highest awards that America can give to a citizen. When David accepted the medal, he thought about his wife Sarah. He thought about Jennifer. He thought about all the people he had trained. He thought about all the lives that had been saved. But the most shocking thing that happened came 2 weeks after David returned from Washington. David was teaching a class when a woman walked into the training center. The woman was middle-aged, maybe 50 years old. She had kind eyes. She looked nervous. "Are you David Martinez?" the woman asked. "Yes," David said. "Can I help you?" The woman began to cry. "My name is Maria Gonzalez. 3 years ago, my son was hit by a car. He was lying on the street, bleeding. A young woman stopped. She was a nurse. She used the techniques from your training program. She stopped the bleeding. She stayed with my son until the ambulance came. My son is alive today because of what you taught that nurse." David did not know what to say. He had trained so many people that he did not remember every single student. But this woman came to thank him. This woman's son was alive because someone had learned from David. Then more people came. A man whose father had survived a heart attack because someone in the community knew CPR. A woman whose mother was still alive because of quick first aid. A teenager whose friend was saved from choking. All these people came to the training center to thank David. David realized that his impact was much bigger than he had ever imagined. He had not just saved Jennifer's life on that highway. By training people, he had saved dozens and dozens of lives. By changing the community's culture, he had created a place where people helped each other. Where people cared for each other. Where people understood that every life is important. The final shock to the police department came when Captain Harrison decided to retire. After 40 years of service, Captain Harrison was leaving the police force. But before he left, he did something very important. Captain Harrison made David the Director of Community Safety for the entire police department. This meant that David was now responsible for training all police officers, firefighters, and emergency responders in the city. David was also responsible for training community members. When the police officers heard this news, many of them were shocked. A civilian, someone who was not a police officer, was now in a position of power in the police department. But then they realized something. David understood them. David respected them. David wanted to make them better at their jobs. David wanted to keep them safe. David wanted to keep the community safe. And so, the police officers accepted David. They welcomed him. They learned from him. And the police department became stronger because of it. Years passed. David built a great legacy. He wrote a book about emergency medical care. He created a training program that was used in 30 states. He received many awards and honors. But he never forgot where he came from. He never forgot the night he was driving on the highway and saw a woman bleeding in a crashed car. Every year on the anniversary of that night, David would drive that same highway. He would stop at the spot where Jennifer had crashed. He would put flowers there. He would remember his wife Sarah. And he would give thanks that he had stopped that night. That he had helped. That he had not kept driving. Jennifer became the police captain of the city. She became David's boss, but more importantly, she remained his best friend. They worked together for 20 years, making their community safer and stronger. Emma grew up and became a doctor. She often said that she became a doctor because of David. She said that David had shown her that helping people was the most important thing in the world. The greatest shock to the police department was not the awards or the recognition or the national fame. The greatest shock was this: David had proven that one person can change everything. One act of kindness. One person who stops to help. One person who cares. One person who uses their skills to help others. David showed the police department that they were not just there to catch criminals. They were there to help. They were there to care. They were there to save lives. And when the police understood this, everything changed. The crime rate in the city went down. But more importantly, the community's spirit went up. People felt safer. People felt cared for. People understood that they were not alone. That if something bad happened, there would be someone to help them. Someone like David. Someone like Jennifer. Someone like the hundreds of people David had trained. And it all started with one woman bleeding on the side of the highway. And one man who stopped. And decided to help.